Good morning. So, today I want to talk a little bit about building deeper relationships. And the reason for this is because I know personally I have a lot of struggles with kind of relying on other relationships with people, whether that be friendships, whether that be family members. Um, Relying on people isn't necessarily my strong suit, and I'm sure it comes from a whole bunch of different issues, but it's always been something that I've tried to work on. And part of that, I think, is how we go about building relationships. So, one thing that I always remember when I think about relationships with people, whether friendships, intimate relationships, family relationships, and so on, is it felt a lot easier when we were younger. And I always think about kind of when people tell you when you're graduating high school, none of these people will follow you, and how none of these friendships last. And I've seen some that do and some that don't. And I don't know, I just kind of look at them, and it felt like it was a lot easier to make relationships work. And I've thought about it a lot, and I've kind of debated it and trying to figure out what that problem is, because when I was in high school I didn't feel like I had a lot of friends, but I did think I had some good friends. But looking back now, I don't really talk to any of them. I have a few people who I would still feel comfortable kind of calling up and seeing if they wanted to spend time together, but I don't really talk to any of them anymore or rely on any of them anymore, and that's a little sad for me. And then I think about college, and I'm like, okay, well, thinking about that, I do have some friendships that I developed in college that I'm still friends with today, but a lot of the people who I thought of as friends, I don't really talk to anymore. And sometimes it hurts a little bit because I can see that they're hanging out with other people that we went to school with still. And it could just be a proximity thing. I did move like 3.5 hours away from where I went to college. So it could just be that. But I don't know. Looking at it, it kind of makes me question that as to what was the difference, why, and all of this. And so I decided to talk about it a little bit and what I've figured out from this. And I think the biggest thing is the depth of the relationship and the amount of effort we put into building and maintaining. And it's not just any one person, it's a two-way street. So the couple of friendships that I do still have, we talked to each other regularly. We made an effort to see each other outside of class. We spent time together learning about each other's interests, hobbies, activities, and things like that. We spent a lot of time just kind of like sharing like secrets of different kinds, like, I don't know, things that we used to get up to, crushes we had, and so on. And just like sharing things with each other, and to the point where we really do trust each other with the kind of talking about anything. And part of that, I think, is the reason why we are still friends, even if we're not as close as we could be. And I think it's because we took the time to build a deeper relationship, not just what's the word I'm looking for? A convenient relationship, which I think is the kinds of relationships that we build when we're in high school, when we're in college, when we're in the workplace even, because these are relationships of convenience. These are the people that we already see every day, and the people we already are going to spend at least 8 hours a day with, depending if you're still in school, if you're at work. And you're spending all of this time with these people. It's very easy to be like, hey, how you doing? How's it going? And asking them about their lives, because you see them literally Monday through Friday. Unless you have a different work schedule, but you see them usually about 40 hours a week, because that's when you're working. And if you share a desk with somebody, or you share an office or a workspace, you get to know each other. The whole talking around the cooler, or if you're still in school, when you have classes together, when you're asking about homework, when you're spending spare time together, or you're doing study groups, or if you're in a group or an organization together, there is a consistency with how you see people, how regularly you see people. And it makes it feel like you have a lot of good friends. But talking about it the other day, and I've talked a little bit about figuring out who your friends are, it's one of those things that it's not a bad thing to have relationships of convenience, because it's kind of part of allowing us to socialize and making it a little bit easier. the thing is, if we want to build more meaningful relationships and deeper relationships that will carry with us even after we leave either high school, college, a workplace, or any organizations, we need to be able to learn to build deeper relationships. And that's something that I've slowly started to realize and I'm working on. But it's hard to do it because it means opening yourself up and kind of giving of yourself to other people, and not always being reciprocated. And the reason we need to is because we are social creatures and we rely on relationships with other people. And different people require different amounts of relationships. I would love to have a lot of friends, whereas somebody like my sister, who's a little bit less social, is good with a small handful of friends who she can trust. And so we all have different requirements as far as how many friends. Some people are good with one friend, some people want 100 friends. And we just have to figure out what we need and work on making them reliable relationships. The kind of relationships where you can call somebody up and say, hey, I'm not feeling good, or I need to get out of the house, or, my car broke down and I need some help. You need to be able to call people and rely on them in times of need. And part of it is going to be building that kind of relationship where you can rely on somebody else. And some of the things that I've learned is just kind of opening yourself up, like I said, and just giving more of yourself. But the thing that hurts us the most is when somebody breaks our trust. So it's happened a lot to me recently, and it's kind of always had phases where it happens. I feel like it happens a lot to me. But we have to learn to get over it. And it's hard for me to say, only because I'm still going through it, and it's really difficult. But we have to learn that it's okay when people break our trust. Now, I'm not saying that you have to go and be friends with them again. I'm saying that it happens. Life happens, and people are going to hurt you, and people are going to break your trust, and not everyone is going to be your friend. Even if you think they were, or if you gave of yourself and you would have been a good friend to them. It's a two-way street. You can be the best friend in the world, but if nobody else is going to be your friend, then none of those relationships are going to work. And it's really difficult to keep putting yourself out there, especially when you feel like you have nothing to show for it. But the key is not to give up, and it's okay to be picky. And that's something that I feel like not enough people talk about, is it's okay to be picky on who your friends are. You don't have to be friends with just anybody, and just because somebody's nice to you doesn't mean you have to be friends with them. You have the ability to choose who you want to be friends with, who you want to develop relationships with, and it's okay to be selfish, because some people might seem like they're really great friends, but they could be bad influences. They could talk down to you, but you feel like, well, they're still hanging out with me and I can still talk to them. That's not a healthy relationship, though. You need to learn to be picky so that you can pick and choose which relationships are going to be good for you. And as I've talked about before, there are different kinds of relationships. So not every relationship is going to be the same, but you do have to realize that you are entitled to be picky sometimes. Now, that doesn't mean to be the person that's going to cut off everyone and, somebody's putting in their effort to be friends with you, but you don't want to be friends with them. Tell them that. Say, you can just say, hey, I enjoy spending time together, or maybe I'm just not comfortable, and maybe that will be a good relationship. Maybe it won't, but you need to be honest with people and help other people grow. Maybe you just don't have anything in common, or maybe you didn't know you had anything in common, and you have to really try to meet people where they're at. If somebody is new to the workplace, it's not going to kill you to go over and introduce yourself and let them know, hey, if you need anything, let me know. And that's one way that you can develop good relationships with people, is to make the initiative to meet people and to get to know people. And one of the things that I think is hardest to get over is the betrayal of trust, and for a lot of reasons. So, fairly recently, I had been developing a lot of new relationships, and when I say a lot, I mean a lot. Like, I was meeting at least 5, conversation meeting new people every day for my job. And it was exhausting, because meeting people is exhausting. And it was stressful, and I was working my best to try to get to know people. And throughout this time, I felt like I'd been making some more personal connections on the side as well, like people who I met and I thought we were friends, or we could be friends, and developing all of these relationships that I thought would last. Now, I'm not saying every single one of the people that I met was a good relationship to maintain, but some were for work, but I had started to think, like, well, maybe I'm meeting people who we can be friends, and we can get along, and maybe on the weekends we can hang out, or after work we can spend time together as friends. And then, after I left this job, I felt like I'd kind of been slapped in the face by a lot of people, because a few people, the reactions that I got afterwards were, it was more of a business relationship. Others were just, it wasn't as convenient anymore, and it was just a lot of different things. And this is not to say that every single person I met was like that, but I did definitely realize that I didn't have as many friends as I thought, and a lot of the relationships that I'd been trying to develop weren't gonna make it. And that's hard. But I also realized I wasn't necessarily being as picky as I ought to have been. I should have asked more of the relationships that I wanted to develop. I should have been able to feel like I could ask of them more personal things and develop those relationships further without feeling like an inconvenience. And that's something that we all struggle with, is that we don't want to be inconvenient to a lot of people. And it's okay. You should be able to inconvenience them every now and then if you need it. Because a lot of the time, something that I notice is that we don't want to inconvenience people, but we would gladly be inconvenienced by our friends in order to be there for them. So it's a little bit of a double standard that we see for ourselves sometimes. And it's when a good friend of yours is in trouble and they feel like, well, I don't want to bother you. The first thing a lot of us say is, bother me. I want to be there. I want to help you. But when the situation is the other way around and we need help, but we don't want to bother people, what makes you think, if they're really your friends, that you would really be bothering them? You would want to be bothered if your friend needed your help, so why can't you bother them? And it's something that it sounds easy, and I say it like I've mastered it, but I haven't. I still feel like I'm bothering my husband when I ask him to get up to get me a glass of water when he's already getting up to get himself a glass of water. It's something that's really hard to work on, especially if you've been made to feel at some point in your life like you are an inconvenience. And the truth is, you're not. To the wrong people, you will always be an inconvenience, because your relationship will be considered work that is not worth the effort. But to the right people, every effort that they put into building your relationship is going to be worth it. And to them, it's going to be an investment of their time. And that's something that we have to realize. Good relationships aren't a waste of time. They aren't inconvenient. They are an investment of our times into people who we care about, who we hope will care about us as well. And that is a change of mentality. The people who you meet, who you want to be good friends with, or you want to have an intimate relationship with, or even if you're trying to develop familial relationships, you have to learn your boundaries, like we talked about. You have to learn who your real friends are. But most importantly, we have to work on building an actual deep and meaningful relationship that will last outside of convenience. We have to figure out, what are their likes, what are their dislikes, what's their favorite color, when's their birthday, like all of the superficial things that a lot of us don't always think about, but also some of the deeper things. Like when I like to get gifts for people who I care about, I don't want to get the obvious. So for my sister, sometimes the obvious is things that are cute, and like she really likes cats. So that's some of the obvious things. But some of the other things that she likes are fashion, and she likes different styles of clothing that do different things. She likes cute things. She likes memorabilia. She also is really big fan of like little figurines and things like that. And it's a little bit more personal. And every now and then I have to really dig deep to think, okay, what is something that she would really get excited about? And that's how you know you're developing deeper relationships, when you can answer those kinds of questions. Well, what does your friend want? What does your significant other want? What does your family want? That would get them excited to open it. Not just, oh, this is neat, or oh, I really like it, but actually get really excited for it. One of the things that I learned about my husband is he likes, and I quote, things that do a thing. Now, this is not to say like a comb, because it does a thing, but like a comb that would also do other things, per se. So one of his favorite gifts that I ever got him was it's a tactical pen. On one side, it has a piece, like, I want to say it's metal, but I'm also not sure what it's made out of. But it's essentially supposed to be a glass breaker. And on the other side, it's a pen, and it has a metal case, and it's got a screw cap. And it's just one of his favorite things. And it's really simple, and it's not something that a lot of people would think about. But that's a little bit more personal level of the things that he likes. Most people get him t-shirts with quirky things because he's a sarcastic pain in the butt who likes funny shirts. And not to say I haven't gotten him those before, but when I'm trying to think about something that I know he would enjoy that maybe not anybody else would think about, that's where I go. I go to the conversations that we've had, the memories that we have, the different interactions that we've had over time that tell me more about him on a deeper level than on a more superficial level. And I apply this to all of my relationships, with my friends, with my family, with people that I just meet. And over time, that's how we grow deeper, meaningful relationships. And that's a big part of it, is trying to figure out the more important aspects and the deeper things for people. Like, if somebody had a favorite childhood candy or a toy that they used to love playing with. My dad really likes, like, the little Tonka trucks, the little Tonka toys, because when he was younger they were really expensive and they couldn't always buy them because he's one of 7. So one of the things that we'll get him every now and then now is those toys. And it might not play with them like he could have when he was younger, but it reminds him of kind of what it's like to be a kid and things that he enjoys. And it's things like that that mean more to people than, oh, well, he's a computer tech, so let's get him computer tech related, or let's get him a gift card to one of those places, which would still be nice, but it doesn't have that same personal value or investment. And that's where we know where we need to work on things. If the best we can think of is something that's a little bit more superficial, we haven't quite developed that relationship. And that's not a bad thing. I'm still developing relationships with the people that I've met through my husband. So he's got a best friend, and his best friend has a wife, and I consider them my friends, but I don't have that deep relationship with them yet because I still need to work on it. I still need to put in more time. I need to get to know them better. I need to spend more time with them. And it's hard because we all have very different schedules. We have more of a Monday through Friday 8 to 5 kind of schedule, and they have a more kind of sporadic schedule. So our days off and the times that we can spend together aren't always as easy as, I'll see you on the weekend. It's, well, this is the next day I have off, and this is the next day we have off, and you're just like figuring out how schedules align. But it's something that I consider important. So I put the time into it. And slowly but surely, we're beginning to develop that relationship, and I can start to slowly say, okay, maybe this would be a good idea, maybe this would be, and I'm slowly starting to figure out what they like and how I can make that relationship better, or the things that they might get excited for on their birthdays or on Christmas and things like that. And that's how we develop relationships. We start asking the more meaningful questions. What is their favorite color? And going one step deeper, why is it their favorite color? What is their favorite cartoon? Why was it their favorite cartoon? And start trying to figure out who they are as people and really getting to know them. And that's, like I said, taking that deeper step to making these relationships last longer, to make them mean more to people. And it takes time, and it doesn't always work out because, like I said, it's a two-way street, and sometimes people just don't want to be friends with new people, or it's not a good time for them, or maybe they're worried or afraid. There's lots of different reasons why things don't work out. It's not always you. But if we just start to take the time to slowly invest more into relationships that we want to develop, we'll start figuring out things are lasting longer. or things are meaning more, or maybe things are finally working out for you. Thanks for listening.